Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live. It is Friday, September the 26th in the year of our Lord 2025. Promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property, doing so in the traditions of our founding fathers, using the supreme law of the land, the Constitution for the United States of America as our guide. As you know, we reject revolution. We stand for peaceful restoration of the greatest country on the face of the earth. I guess if it's a Jesus revolution, then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, it is a freedom-loving, fantastic, faith-filled Friday. That means we take to the airwaves with Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. Welcome back, sir.
I can't believe every week goes by so quickly. I guess time has been speeded up, shortened,
and it's
if you
going to
will.
continue to do so even at a faster, more rapid rate every day, every year. We've got a discussion about the FBI right now, Dr. Bradley, and I don't understand this. I think people should go to prison over this, but here's the headline. The FBI disclosed to Congress that it had 275 plainclothes agents in the crowds on January 6th, 2021. January 26th, 2021, they had 275 plainclothes agents in the crowd. Now, this disclosure contradicts the DOJ Office of the Inspector General in their 2024 report, where they basically claimed, or they said, we found no evidence of undercover FBI personnel during the Capitol protests. Now, here's the problem. When you say no undercover agents, if you're in plain clothes, are you undercover? Well, not really if you're not designated as undercover. If I say, Scott, go there in plain clothes, buddy, and you go, are you undercover? We're playing games with words. Additionally, the same report revealed that the FBI had 26 confidential, quote, human sources in the crowd, with 4 entering the Capitol. Now listen carefully, but they say none, 0, were authorized to incite illegal acts or break the law. They say they have intentions to investigate the roles and the presence of these people. Let's see, Representative Barry Loudermilk is the guy that says he's going to look into this. The FBI's involvement has been a, quote, contentious issue with previous refusals to divulge details to Congress. The discrepancy between the, quote, terms undercover and, quote, plainclothes agents may play a role, they say, in the conflicting statements. So let me get this right. This happened in 2021, literally over 4 years ago. And I don't really understand, because you look at this thing. What do we do with this, Dr. Bradley? We've been literally lied to, manipulated, played games, withheld information, not only from we the people, which is bad enough, but from Congress, too. And now we just get this information. What do you say to this?
Well, it's one of those things. We got a new sheriff in town. That new sheriff should have access to all records. That new sheriff should be able to shed light. That new sheriff should be having a transparent experience with Congress and being able to basically rebuild, if it's possible, the image of the FBI. I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to be an FBI agent. I mean, one of my only mentor that I can think of in all of history, when I was 14 years old, was an FBI guy, and man, I respected the heck out of him. And he did a lot of shooting, and he was a real fine individual, in my opinion. But the fact of the matter is that you got 275 of these people. You say, well, only 4 of them went inside. How many held the doors open? And were they kind of agitating, if you will, being a provocateur, if you will? Or were they just innocent guys standing around with their hands in their pockets?
It'll probably take you another 25 years to get to the bottom of that, you know?
Well, I think you're probably right under other circumstances. But here we have an FBI organization, a Department of Justice organization that's claiming transparency. Now, to date, I've been highly disappointed in those promises. I mean, I have found grave errors of judgment, in my opinion, and kind of a two-faced approach to things, to the point that some of the lead people in the organization, I think, have seriously considered terminating their experience with them. So, hopefully there'll be
So
full disclosure.
let me ask you this though. They say this disclosure contradicts the DOJ office of the Inspector General's 2024 report, which they say found no evidence of undercover FBI personnel at the Capitol during the protests. So they did a whole research and asked this question, and they researched and they came back and lied. Unless
Well,
you say, well, they weren't really undercover, is the word we're going to use. They weren't undercover. They were there 26 of them were kind of authorized to be there. 275 were not authorized to be there. Well, they came, they were told to go, but they weren't really undercover, you see. This is the problem. I can't trust anything they say or do now at all.
well, it's
Zero.
kind of like the definition of is or alone that Bill Clinton waffled on. I mean, it seems like if the IG's office is waffling words, maybe they need to be investigated. The point of the matter is that it does undermine the credibility. And by the way, you saw James Comey was invited yesterday, so it went to the very, 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 very top of the organization, and now he's indicted for perjury and obstruction. And again, that's a running gun battle still. I don't think we're at the bottom of that either, but this
Do you
is
think there's going to be
interesting
any
stuff.
accountability?
Well, he's indicted. I mean,
I know.
and
That doesn't
so
really mean anything.
it's going to be a really
They
tough
might
fight.
do a Ghislaine Maxwell deal where they'll put him in a kind of a Boy Scout camp prison and let him just kind of have a great time. Nobody can really be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. It'll just be like, hey, you can hang out at Boy Scout camp for a while, and then we'll say that you did your time or whatever. And I don't mean to be rude. I just don't have any confidence left, Dr. Bradley. Zero.
Well, I can see how I mean, usually I'm the jaded one in this program. You're coming down around on this thing. No, I think this Comey thing, he faces a potential maximum sentence of 5 years. And as you're
Yeah, he'll
so
get out on good behavior in 2 years, and pretty soon they'll do a GoFundMe account. When he gets out, he'll buy a mansion and a yacht. I mean,
no, he's financially he's good. I mean, I can see
yeah.
books coming out of this. I can see commentator jobs coming out on the lame brain
So I
media.
got a question. If they could put you in jail for 2 or 3 years on some scandal, but you came out a multimillionaire, are you in?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I wouldn't come out a multimillionaire because I'm sure I'd be broken in half and whatever happened because of I think there would be a different kind of vengeance involved with somebody that was seeking to restore the founding principles versus somebody that was undermining the whole fabric of the nation. But this James Comey thing kind of, I mean, by the way, the 30th of September, the statute of limitations runs out on what happened in front of the Senate when he was
Yeah,
testifying. And
that's right.
the accusation is that he lied under oath.
And when did he do this? In 2020?
He did it on September 30th, 2020.
Okay, so
And
why are we just dealing with this now, Doctor? I don't mean to be rude, but why on earth 5 years later, days before the statute of limitations end, we file this? And I guess it's a thin complaint too, right?
well, they had trouble getting the grand jury to indict on some of the stuff. And I think part of your answer is the 4 years that happened in, that intervened, 4 of those years, they absolutely did not in any way, shape, or form intend for anybody to ever find out what has been noised about at this particular time. Initially, this all started back during the election of
Yeah, so didn't he
2016.
2020 was where he lied on the stand or lied before
Correct.
Congress or whatever else, but
That's
this
the
really stems back
accusation.
to a 2017 event. So we're literally 8 years in, Doctor,
Yeah,
and a significant
absolutely.
portion of that time, Trump had control too.
Well, here's the thing. It was done surreptitiously in favor of Hillary Clinton and her cadre. That's the story and the accusation.
That's my girl.
Sheesh. Yeah, I heard Bill sneak in and grab your mic and talk. So anyway, the problem, you're right. I mean, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton the Teflon Dons, whatever you want to call them. They have been pretty slippery on these things. But Comey, my impression, the first time I ran across him, I've maybe told you on this in your program before, was during the reauthorization hearings for the USA Patriot Act in 2004. And Comey was there testifying on behalf of the DOJ. My opinion was really as low as it could get, I thought, and it's gone lower since then.
Well, we pray accountability and transparency happens. Hang tight, Liberty Roundtable Live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump earlier this week addressed the 80th UN General Assembly in New York City, criticizing mass migration and climate-related policies. Very interesting. Sad he's supposed to put America first, but he kind of went global on us at this event. I know he's critical of a lot of things, but listen to the details, and then Dr. Bradley could chime in with his assessment. In his speech, President Trump accused these policies of benefiting countries like China at the expense of developed nations. And then he said, hey, it's failing in their peacekeeping role. So they're promoting these policies, climate change, immigration, that benefit these third world kind of countries at the expense of, modern countries. And then he basically says, hey, you're failing at your peacekeeping role as well. Notably, Trump also announced a shift in his policy towards the, quote, Russia-Ukraine war, basically backing Ukraine, saying, I think they can get all their land back. I think this is going to be incredible. Everybody's unified against Russia. He emphasized the, quote, negative impacts of illegal immigration on social and national security, particularly in Europe. And he said, hey, this kind of action of just crazy immigration around the world really threatens Western nations and civilization. He's right about that. He also criticized European allies for their continued purchase of Russian energy, which he states helps their war efforts. Concluding his address, Trump called for an end to the development of biological and nuclear weapons, highlighting the risk posed by such armaments. He says we need to work on greater monitoring and compliance of, quote, international treaties. Now, he on one hand slapped them around a little bit. On the other hand, he doubled down his intention to continue promoting global government at the expense of United States sovereignty, in my humble opinion, Doctor.
Well, this goes back even actually way before 1945 when they signed this so-called treaty. Every senator voted for it except for the two that had read it. And they said, holy cow, this is global government. We should have never gotten in. We should never be there now. It's been the bane of the United States sovereignty from the day it was born. I mean, we have fought wars at their behest. We have fought wars at the behest of their regional arrangements that their charter basically establishes. I mean, NATO is the war-making arm of the United Nations. The United Nations has basically been a hindrance to the liberty of the United States all along. So, yeah, I mean, let's get out of it, and we should never have been in it. But this comment you make about he's fostering globalism, absolutely, because if you're nibble around the edges and seeming to give it a little slap on the wrist, and yet almost everything that was in there gave credence to it and a responsibility to the United Nations to take care of these things that aren't any of their business. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't listen to the whole thing, honestly. Sometimes the bombastic nature of things is, I only listen to snippets sometimes. But yeah, his immigration thing. I mean, absolutely. Starmer, what's his name? The Prime Minister of England. Okay, I'll just tell you how this is helping with the globalist movement. Starmer's getting kind of put through the ringer a little bit in England. They had the biggest civil, it wasn't disorder, it was a civil demonstration, if you will. They say 150,000 people. I think it was much larger than that. But at any rate, the Brits are saying, all of this immigration is just destroying our country. So Starmer's saying, oh, what we're going to do that is put a national ID together and everybody's going to have this papers kind of scenario. They're entering the realm of, like Cuba and North Korea. And the problem is that basically they use this a disaster that was created by the leadership in England and, through France and Germany and Sweden. I mean, all across Europe. They create the disaster and then they bring a solution that furthers the globalist perspective. And that's exactly what's happening in England. I mean, you've probably, seen those old movies, World War II, and afterwards they got the Gestapo or the Stasi or the KGB or somebody coming through the train going, papers. That's exactly where England's going with this thing. And the United States is not far behind. Kristi Noem, you go to the airports nowadays and you have her voice intoning over the PA system. Oh, it's so cool. You got to get your, real ID and we're going to be, it's a national form of identification, kids.
And now you can keep your shoes on. So we're going to go ahead and slap you, but we're going to smile while we slap you. So you're okay. And that's kind of the problem that I'm seeing now. President Trump called an end to the development of biological weapons and nuclear weapons, highlighting the risks that those things, are to societies. Now, I understand calling for an end to those things, but the United Nations wants to be a military force in and of itself. The UN wants to be a world court. It wants to be a governance that circumvents the sovereignty of America. Now, I don't know why he didn't say we're getting out of the United Nations, but here's what I don't understand. Does he hate or love the UN? Now, listen carefully. Trump, quote, I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them. All right. Now, is the UN his opponent? They disagree on migration or immigration. They disagree on climate change. They disagree on armaments. We can go on, right? And so does he hate the UN or does he like the UN? Are they his opponent or not?
No, I think he'll use them as an instrument for whatever he thinks he's going to be able to accomplish. Here's the deal. And this is not an exact correlation because it wasn't Trump that said this to me, but a sitting United States senator, I was in his office talking about the importance of maintaining our sovereignty, getting out of this sovereignty busting organization and everything like that. He said, let me tell you something, son. He's a little older than me. He's dead now. He said, the United Nations is our organization. We use it to our purposes all the time. And I believe he was accurately.
And by the way, he's spot on.
Yeah, he was accurately stating this thing, and that I believe is what now. Who did he put in just now? He put Waltz in. Who did he put in as our ambassador? At any rate, we're there playing the game. I mean, every step of the way we facilitate it. We're going to stand in the way of anybody saying, "Oh, it's genocide in Gaza." No, you can't say something negative against the modern state of Israel. And so we're there to, kind of basically form the argument and be able to
Mike
have
Waltz, you're right.
Yeah. At any rate, so we're there to utilize whatever leverage we can get out of it. And the problem is it violates the baseline principle under which the United States was formed in 1776. The Westphalian Treaty of 1648 said, and it was agreed to by all parties, if you want to get really put to sleep by that, well, I won't get to, it's just really crappy wording. At any rate, but the bottom line, every nation is sovereign. And within their borders, no other nation can interfere. All nations are equal, no second-class nations. They can stand independent of all others. I mean, I'm just summarizing the high points of this thing. But that was the basis of our Declaration of Independence. We were going to, basically enter the world as a nation among nations, and everything that the United
We
Nations
had no
stands
more
for.
authority or no less authority than any other one at the reality of, and now we've changed the game. And so I don't know why President Trump didn't go in there and say, hey, I've decided to defund the United Nations. We're getting out of it. It's subversive to everybody's sovereignty. You guys should know that as well as I know that. We're not going to fund it. But here's the question. So Trump and our Congress is one of the biggest funders of the United Nations. And if the United Nations is truly, as Trump says, listen, truly developing biological and nuclear weapons, or the member nations are, right?
Ukraine. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, Ukraine. That's right. Okay. And we're going to, have the UN funding and backing mass migration. They're manipulating climate-related policies, and they're failing at their, quote, peacemaking role. Then you kind of go, aren't we the problem if we're the ones funding it, propping it up and keeping it alive, Doctor? Or am I kind of confused on this?
Well, yeah, this could be resolved with a vote in Congress. I mean, we're withdrawing. Trump has talked about withdrawing funding for UNESCO, and it ought to be across the board. I mean, in fact, we ought to say, you know what? You don't have a building anymore in New York City. We're kind of withdrawing. By the way, it's held as sovereign territory. When the United Nations came to Utah here a couple, 2 or 3 years ago, and was in the big center down in Salt Lake, they said it was sovereign United Nations territory, and they had full control of it. They claim
Wait a minute.
control.
Not in our state. That's criminal. They
Yes,
should be thrown in prison.
our governors. Come on, Sam. Now you know
Hold on
as
a
well.
minute.
I
Look,
know
wait a
you're
minute.
kidding
It's
me.
a state of the United States. It has its own sovereignty, and breaching its border by an international criminal agency has got to be stopped.
They were invited in by the governor, and you would be shocked
yeah.
at the. I went, I guess I should say, to the first United Nations meeting in Utah. It was about 1992, 93. I can't remember. At any rate, I sat on the second row in the tabernacle on Temple Square to hear their dribbled across the podium. And yes, indeed, the United Nations is fully welcome in Utah, and our governor basically winking a nod. Yep, it's United Nations sovereign territory when you're here. I mean, it's astounding.
Amen. All I can tell you, folks, is Donald Trump is promoting globalism, and he's pretending to act like he's America first. But if you want to be America first, shut down the sovereignty breaching international, in my humble opinion, criminal organization. All right, quick pause. This is Liberty Roundtable Live. I'm Sam Bushman, the good doctor. Dr. Scott Bradley with me. His website, freedomsrisingsun.com. Our guest, Mr. Pete Sepp. He's president of the National Taxpayers Union, ladies and gentlemen. NTU is the voice of the America's taxpayer. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, mobilizing elected officials and citizens to stand for tax relief and tax reform. NTU.org to learn more. Pete Sepp, welcome back, sir.
Always great to be here.
So let's talk about taxes for a quick second. The tariffs are a concern. I'm all for tariffs if you lower taxes. But if you add tariffs to taxes, I hate to be critical, Pete, but you got a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you certainly do. The tariffs being contemplated under this administration could actually cancel out all of the economic benefits from the recently passed One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So they need to be very careful moving forward and have moderate tariff policy that's designed to eventually get other countries to agree to zero as the tariff level between the United States and whoever else is in the rest of the world who wants to trade with us. That's what tariffs should be used for, to get to zero. In other words, make them obsolete.
It should be fair trade, not free trade, ladies and gentlemen. And a tiny tariff could make some sense to level the playing field, etc. But I'm concerned. Why don't we just abolish the IRS, though? If we did that, then the tariffs might be okay, sir.
Well, having no IRS would certainly cheer a lot of folks. There might have to be some kind of federal agency in its place. But look, the IRS remains seriously challenged on almost every front: customer service, technological modernization, you name it. Starting from scratch might be the best possible thing for our tax system.
Now, Pete Sepp, you understand that I'm a self-appointed Trump advisor, right?
Indeed.
So I'm telling him to abolish the IRS and do it now. If we're about to shut down the government, what better way to say we're just going to shut down the IRS and we're going to keep the government rolling? If I shut down the IRS, I could give Dr. Bradley some pom-poms. What do you say, Dr. Bradley?
I don't think you'd think that was a very good idea. I mean, I'm absolutely completely inept at those kind of things.
All right,
but
there you have it. What do you think, though? I'm saying the tariffs plus the IRS, it's just too much.
Are you talking to me or Pete?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean? I mean, me? Okay. No, I think that the IRS is absolutely a bane to the U.S. liberty. It's been a dark cloud over the United States forever. And you bring up the upcoming shutdown, the 30th of September. We could talk about that at some point. But Pete's probably got some other things on his mind. I think that I'd like to hear where you think this is going
Well,
to
let's
really
ask
go.
this: is there any relief coming down the pike, and will they shut down the government? Those are the two questions on my mind, Mr. Sepp.
Yeah, it's a game of brinkmanship right now, and it's worth fighting for, quite frankly. Democrats in this situation, and I'm not here to be partisan because Democrats and Republicans have a spending addiction that they need to cure. But in this case, Democrats are completely in the wrong. The Republican House of Representatives passed a bill to avoid a government shutdown by simply saying, okay, if we need more time to negotiate the fiscal year, we should have been doing this like 6 months ago, but all right, let's just keep the government funded at its current level. No more extra programs, no spending hikes, no hidden liabilities. We'll just keep it level as we negotiate. Democrats are saying no. We would rather shut down the government because we want to reverse all of the Medicaid reforms that were just enacted in July under one big beautiful bill. We want to extend expiring Obamacare subsidies that were meant only to last during the pandemic. We want essentially $1 trillion of extra spending over the next 10 years, 947 billion to be exact, almost 1 trillion, or the government should shut down. What are Democrats thinking?
I think this is a little bit nuanced, though, because I agree with the Democrats that, hey, you guys have had forever. Don't tell me you need more time. All you'll do with more time is beg for more time again. That's the pattern. It's got to stop. Now, I think they're wrong on what they're trying to bring back. They want to spend more, so they're wrong-headed on that. But I'm all for shutting down the government and only bring back what's constitutional. What do you think?
Well, that would certainly mean a much smaller government if we were talking about a constitutional government, in other words, one that's limited by the enumerated powers in the Constitution. Well, the budget deficit would certainly go away almost immediately, and you'd be looking at a government with a budget roughly of 1/3 of what we have today. We've done these calculations over the years to think about, well, would, for example, some of the entitlement programs that have been created still be around? No, not under enumerated powers. Certainly,
No, but you would have to work your way out of some of them, not crash the plane. But you're right.
right. But eventually, you would get to a point where the federal government is far, far smaller. We're spending upwards of $7 trillion a year right now. Under a constitutional discipline of enumerated powers, you'd be looking at $2.5, maybe $3 trillion at the most.
Dr. Bradley, where do I sign?
Well, I don't think you're going to get that opportunity, Sam. But I'll tell you, this is an example of what happens with handouts. This is so poignantly pointed out by Pete. Woo, alliteration. Anyway, you got to have been an English major. At any rate, the
It's
idea
equivalent to
that
dad jokes, people.
yeah, come on, dad jokes. Anyway, not just bad dad, but at any rate, you look at this Obamacare subsidy that's expiring at the end of the year. It's supposed to last through the COVID con, and hey, it's free money, baby. And it was brought to us as a short time holdover kind of thing, but now it has become we're addicted to it, and people want to be able to continue it. And it's not just Democrats that want to continue this. This is a lot of the red states, and it ties into the Medicaid thing and how they handled that. But a lot of the red states, some supposedly soundly founded members of Congress are saying, wait, some of my people back home are telling me that this helps them a lot. Well, of course, it's free money. Just open a box in every corner that somebody can go stick their hand in and pull something out. It's going to be popular with the people, but it was not, first of all, not constitutional. Second of all, it was short term. But the whole danger of all these entitlements is they become addictive. And people say, no, we can't do without this now. Wait a minute, you did pretty good 6 years ago without this. How come but the problem is that nobody wants to let go of something they've clawed out of the hands of American taxpayers, redistributed wealth, totally, completely, unequivocally unconstitutional. You cannot redistribute wealth under the Constitution. But this is an example of what's happening. And honestly, we have some Republicans that are, they're not just clamoring to extend these things forever, but they're saying, we got to be careful how we handle this. Some of my constituents here
Uh-huh.
is having some benefit. And you know what? That's how we get bigger and bigger government year to
But
year
it's
to year.
happening at the point of a virtual government gun, and it's got to stop. And so, on one hand, I don't agree with the Democrats' reasoning or logic or desire to force greater expenditures. However, I do say I don't appreciate the Republicans. Think about it. Last year, right at the end of the lame duck session, they went, passed it. Then they went and passed it again and passed it again. Now they want more time again. It's just the business as usual. Pete, can you give me some good news anywhere?
Well, of course, we have the One Big Beautiful Bill, which did some good in tax policy. I like that. We have a bill called the Prevent Government Shutdowns Act, which is finally getting some support and probably will get a vote later this year. What that essentially does is when Congress can't get its act together, the government gets automatically funded at current levels, not higher levels, for 2 weeks at a time, and members of Congress and the rest of the executive branch are not allowed to leave town at taxpayer expense. So, in other
Now,
words,
I got another idea. Let's add to that. Go ahead and skip the break, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Skip the break. But I would say this, though. Why not suspend their pay, too?
yeah, I think if they're not going to do their jobs, why pay them? I mean, that's a simple logic. And of course, that would be I think, an extra incentive for not only the executive branch, but the legislative branch to finally get the job done. This is another thing, and I don't want to get too far down the constitutional law path because there's so many issues we can discuss, but Congress is becoming an inferior branch of government. Some would argue a far, far inferior branch of government on key decisions like appropriations, like taxes, like tariffs. They're just ceding power to the executive through their own inaction.
All right. What bill number is this bill you're talking about here?
The Prevent Government Shutdowns Act. I will get you that bill number before we leave air.
All right. Prevent Government Shutdowns Act. I like it because I think when they shut down the government, even though I'm for it because I only want constitutional government. So I'm not for it because I want to shut down government. I'm for it because I want to shut down all the unconstitutional, problems that we've created. I don't think shutting down government is a wise move at all. I think it's a game playing tactic. What they really do is shut down whatever makes the American people suffer. And they leave open anything that they don't want to really be shut down in these contests. But at the end of the day, I look at it and say, if you shut down the government and your job is to work for government and government shut down, do you have a job?
Yeah.
Let me ask that question. Do you have a job, Pete?
It's hard to argue that you do, right?
And that's the point. It's not meant to be a trap, but I'm just saying. So if the government shut down, they should all go home and nobody should get any pay. None of them. You guys are all let go. You guys were in Congress, except you shut down Congress. So now that there's no Congress anymore, you don't have a congressional seat anymore, right?
Well,
am I crazy?
Well, Sam, and by the way, the Prevent Government Shutdowns Act is H.R. 5130, just introduced, hot off the presses. But, Sam, the interesting thing is that the OMB director, Office of Management and Budget, close to the White House in the executive branch, the director, Russ Vought, noted in a memo very recently that this time, if there's a government shutdown, the administration is going to order agencies to let people go if they're idled because of the shutdown. That's a very similar concept to what you're discussing. Of course, he's not proposing to do that for the legislative branch.
Why not? They don't have anything to do.
Yeah. I mean, can the executive branch instruct the legislative branch that way? Well, that's an important question. But the concept, yeah. if
If
you're not,
government shut down, nobody can instruct anybody to do anything. The president needs to go home, right? Just saying, send him right back to Mar-a-Lago there. Dr. Bradley, what do you think? If the government shut down, none of these people have a position, do they?
Well, here's the deal. The Constitution does take precedent. They are separate but equal, and the president does not have jurisdiction over the legislature, nor does the legislature over the president. And or we could throw the judiciary in there and show how these checks and balances are to work. But the fact of the matter is, here's how historically it has been done. They put the quote unquote non essential, which is a very large portion of the government, as we've been talking about. The non essential things do not get, keep being operational. And as you point out, they make it as apparent as they can. They don't put toilet paper in the Yellowstone Park restrooms, or they don't clean them, or something like that. And everybody's going, "Oh man, what a mess we got here!" But the essential things, in their definition of essential, will continue. And
So
then
then quit the fake news and tell me the government shut down when it's really not.
no, and then here's the other thing.
right.
Then they give back pay to anybody that was, somehow edged out
Wait
by
a minute,
this
you're paying
shutdown.
people for shutdown time?
You
Oh,
bet, and
yeah.
it'll be
Isn't that a
back
criminal
pay.
offense? Hold
Well,
on, isn't that a criminal offense?
Well, Congress ends up passing the law and the appropriation. Yeah. They get made whole.
yeah, everybody does get. I mean, everybody. If you send them home, Sam, they'd be on a paid vacation essentially. And
No,
by the
I say if
way,
the government shut down, we don't have any expenditures because there's no government.
I'm looking, by the way, at this bill.
I understand what you guys are saying. I'm playing the devil's advocate to make some serious points that people need to really think about for a
They
second.
do indeed.
And,
But
and
let
so
me
I don't,
just
I don't
tell
mean
you,
to really argue or contradict as much as I'm trying to highlight something important. What if that was my business? And I said, my business is shut down. Do I have a payroll to make?
yeah,
Do
you
I have
do.
workers' comp? No, I don't. My business is shut
Oh,
down.
you mean you've closed your business? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if
So
you're
I'm
just
trying to
locking
get
your
people to
doors, you
understand
do.
this reality, right? If you shut down government, if we're going to have a government shutdown, there are no expenditures in a government that doesn't exist, Pete Sepp.
Well, is the government still exists, it's just not funded. I mean, that's the other logic
Well, if it's
that
not
people
funded,
jump.
then there's no money to spend.
Well, that is true to the extent, of course, though. Here's the other thing. Tax collections are almost automatic for about 80% of the revenue that the
Wait a
federal.
minute now. When the government shut down, if it's shut down for 60 days, do I get 60 days off of my IRS,
Oh, no.
obligations?
You
No,
wish.
sir.
So I'm paying a non-entity.
I mean, that's an interesting concept. You could have a
Yeah.
bill that says, okay, if they're not working for taxpayers, we get a refund too. We get made whole just like federal workers do.
Yeah,
It's
you'd have
it's
to pass a law to do that, huh, doctor?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
well, here's the deal. If my internet service gets shut down for an outage or something, they give me a rebate. But I'm
That's
just looking
correct.
at this bill that Pete has brought up, 5130, prevent shutdown. It's got Jody Arrington is the sponsor. He's out of Texas. He's a Republican. There's one co-sponsor, another Republican.
Yeah.
There's a percent. Some of these sites I look at, they give an odds-on kind of chance of things being enacted. This is suggesting, the one I'm looking at here right now, says a 19% chance of being enacted. It's not exactly one of your big betters, guys, that they're going to even pass this thing. But it's 17 pages long. It's not that hard to read. I mean, it's a bunch of gobbledygook in terms of legalese and references back and forth and all that kind of stuff. But you can get on and take a look at it. I mean, people ought to do that. HR 5130, Prevent Government Shutdowns Act of 2025.
Yeah, the
It's
problem
not.
is whenever I read government bills, they have so many cited sources that I can't even understand what I'm reading.
Well, that's exactly true. And in fact, I'll just give you an example. When I reviewed the USA Patriot Act, it had 214. I counted them manually. I may be off, but it's close to that number. 214 references into U.S. code that it affected also. So it's not just one bill that's
Yeah,
got
see,
all
the
the
point is you can't
information.
even really dig into the nuances of it
It's
and
hard.
understand what you're
It,
reading. It's very, very difficult, almost impossible. Pete Sepp, where do we go from here? They're going to be running, the Republicans are going to be running next year on their, quote, success. I don't know that they have a whole lot to run on, sir.
Success will have to be measured in how much we reduce the federal deficit, how much we return government to its constitutional limits, and how much freedom we give taxpayers. Those are, and
And do they have
giving
a lot? Is there a lot
and
to point to?
a lot.
or
Well,
any.
Or any?
I
Good
think
point.
I think One Big Beautiful Bill Act was a pretty good achievement for a Congress that is so deadlocked and inward looking. Not bad. Not bad at all. Do we have more to do? You bet we do. And it starts with reducing federal spending.
Amen to that. I agree with Pete 1,000% on the reduced federal spending. You know, Dr. Bradley, you and I teach to the ideal. Pete Sepp in Washington, D.C. is living in the real. And so his responses have to do with this reality that it's true. We got a bunch of socialists. We got a bunch of deadlocked congressional members. You've got the Senate now shanghaiing the House. And it's a difficult thing. And to accomplish anything, Pete Sepp's point is, hey, it's a good start. And, you know, do we look at it that way, Doctor?
I have to correct, let me just quickly correct you,
Sure,
Sam.
please.
Nothing in
Sure.
this town is real.
And
You're right about that. I'm just saying you live in the reality of what we're facing as
Yeah.
opposed to we're teaching constitutional ideals here. And I get that they're far apart. Your point's well taken. But what do you think, Doctor? I mean, is the big, beautiful bill a good start to point to?
well, I've got a lot of heartburn with that actually. I mean, we really are continuing the Joe Biden economic policies. The bill really was a continuation of so much of that, and I honestly think that's a conglomeration of many decades of poor policy. And so it's like I pointed out, this thing earlier with these extensions of these Obamacare subsidies. People get addicted to these things, and stuff that came in Dwight Eisenhower's term is still hanging on. It's really hard to get rid of stuff that should not be there. And that's a very ephemeral kind of term. It's there, it's been there, it's become part of the woodwork, and people are kind of, feeling a little comfortable with it. And I guess I would like to get people feeling a lot less comfortable with how big the government's gotten, and start returning to the original intent of the American founding fathers, a much smaller general government. Read the 45th Federalist paper about basically they handle the stuff outside the borders and the states handle stuff inside the borders. That's kind of an overstatement a little bit, but the fact of the matter is,
Point's well taken.
there was really, 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 I mean, in those days, tariffs did run the government. And I've had conversations with people, even Sam, that they say, "Oh, that's impossible today. We couldn't run the country off of tariffs."
Sure, we could.
Well, the fact of the matter is that we've grown comfortable. It's the old My Fair Lady things, and people probably didn't know what that was back in the '60s. The musical. I've grown accustomed to her face. I mean, we start thinking the face of big government is beautiful because of some goodie box that we're accustomed to.
All right, Pete, what do you say? I think it's to some degree me and Dr. Bradley are too negative because we want to look at this ideal, and man, it sure doesn't look good, sir. But I don't want to be negative. I want to be cheerful and positive, and I want to work to the best I can. But boy, is it difficult when I just see they promised the world and they've virtually done nothing.
It is difficult to remain cheerful. I'm not sure I would call myself cheerful. Optimistic that with enough persistence, we can win important gains on behalf of taxpayers and their rights, their freedoms. Yeah, we've done it before. We can't always win. We definitely don't always win. In fact, we mostly lose. But what alternative is there to allow this system to perish? We can't. It's ailing, and we have to do something to help it.
Well, here's what we need to do. We need the American people to look at the HR 5130 2025-26. This act may be cited as the, quote, Prevent Government Shutdowns Act. we really need to talk about that, folks, because why do we only have 19 or 20% support for that thing? Everybody should be for saying, let's not shut down the government, but let's be serious about cutting spending. I mean, isn't that really your point, Pete?
Yes, it is. And this is not the perfect bill. It's only a tiny start down that road to a constitutional and limited government. The only alternative we have is to not take the step and let things get worse.
Well, I'm not excited about that. I'll tell you that right now. NTU.org, National Taxpayers Union. You guys help people on the national level, but also all the way down to the local level, states and local municipalities. And you guys work all up and down the reality here to help people understand how to reduce taxes, how to create tax reform, how to make taxes fair and appropriate. None of us are against paying our fair share, but it's about how we do it that matters. Pete, final word to you.
Amen. And we get to define what a fair share is, not our leaders. That's what's important here.
Roger that. Pete Sepp, President of the National Taxpayers Union. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure.
NTU.org. They do a phenomenal job. Sam and the Good Doctor having a great time. Hope you are as well. Entertaining, educational. We indeed hope so. This broadcast is brought to you by the Loving Liberty Radio Networks, lovingliberty.net. Spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.